You know that feeling? Standing spotlight center in a room. But instead of applause, all you get are those pitying stares. The kind that say, "Oh, honey, bless your heart." You hear the barely stifled snickers. See the knowing glances exchanged over your head. And the whispers slithering through the air. Her? Seriously? She thinks she's going to make it big? That's rich. That was my welcome party the day I dropped the bombshell. I was ditching my secure, mind-numbingly dull corporate gig to chase a wild, audacious dream of my own. They didn't just doubt, they openly ridiculed me, painting me as some naive fool chasing rainbows. But lean in, because I'm about to share the story of how those echoes of laughter faded into stunned silence. And how that silence eventually gave way to the unmistakable sound of their jaws hitting the floor. This isn't just a story, it's my battle-worn map from being an invisible drone in a vast corporate hive to the architect of a $1 million enterprise. And let me be crystal clear, it was a brutal climb. Every single step a fight. But oh, the view from the top? Absolutely priceless. Before the revolution, I was Sarah Thompson, just another marketing strategist lost in the beige labyrinth of Midwest marketing solutions. A perfectly respectable, soul-sucking firm smack in the heart of Chicago. On paper, I had it all: a steady paycheck, decent benefits, the illusion of a career path. But beneath the surface, I was suffocating. My days were a blur of fluorescent lights and endless, circular meetings where my over-caffeinated boss, Mr. Henderson, would pontificate about quarterly projections and synergistic blah 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 that meant absolutely nothing to me. My colleagues? A mixed bag. Some were genuinely decent, but many operated with this passive-aggressive undercurrent, a subtle knack for making you feel like your aspirations were, at best, quaint little hobbies. And then there was Linda. Linda, my team lead. A woman whose smile was as synthetic as the plastic plant on her desk. A smile that never, ever reached her cold, calculating eyes. Face to face, she was all honey and sweetie. But the moment your back was turned, you could practically feel the daggers. I can still hear her voice. That condescending purr, usually during a casual, coffee break chat with other team members. "Oh, Sarah? She's trying. Bless her. But let's be honest, she's not exactly executive material. Is she?" She had no idea that every dismissive word she uttered was like kindling to a wildfire she couldn't yet see. Because, you see, I was dreaming, not just daydreaming to escape the monotony, but actively, obsessively envisioning something grander, something mine. For years, this seed of an idea had been germinating in the back of my mind. A boutique event planning company. But not just any event company. I envisioned Dream Vibe Events. A business that wouldn't just throw parties but would meticulously architect immersive, unforgettable experiences that told a story. But daring to voice this fledgling dream, even to those I thought were friends, was like walking into a hailstorm of skepticism. Event planning? Sarah, the market is saturated. You think you can break through against the big players? Or the ever-popular, why rock the boat? You have a good, stable job. Just be grateful and keep your head down. Each cynical remark was another tiny puncture in my already bruised confidence. The moment that changed everything wasn't dramatic. No sudden epiphany under a moonlit sky. It arrived on a soul-crushingly gray Tuesday afternoon, disguised as an email from Linda. Her digital voice, dripping with that familiar false sweetness, was gently requesting, which, in Linda's corporate dialect, meant, demanding with an iron fist in a velvet glove, that I stay late. Again, to fix her colossal screw-up on the Peterson account. A project that was so far outside my actual job description it might as well have been on another planet. I just stared at the glowing screen. A slow, simmering rage building in the pit of my stomach. A pressure cooker about to blow. Why was I allowing this? Why was I letting someone else? Someone so utterly mediocre, Dictate the terms of my time, my energy, my life? Why was I contorting myself to fit into their suffocatingly small box? That was it, the final straw, the moment the internal dam of frustration and quiet resentment finally burst. I knew, with a clarity that was almost terrifying in its intensity, that I couldn't spend one more day living someone else's version of my life. I had to break free. The escape plan began that very evening. My official 9 to 5 ended, but my real workday was just kicking into high gear. Back in my tiny, rent-controlled studio apartment, which suddenly felt more like a command center than a prison, I transformed, hunched over my battered, loyal laptop, fueled by lukewarm coffee and pure adrenaline. I dove headfirst into the abyss of entrepreneurship. Spreadsheets became my new best friends. Market research my nightly obsession. I meticulously drafted, redrafted, and then tore apart and rebuilt my business plan. Piece by painstaking piece. My war chest? A laughably small $5 scraped together from years of disciplined saving. That trusty old laptop. And a bottomless well of sheer, stubborn willpower. I chanted it like a mantra. Late into the flickering city nights, if I don't leap now, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering, what if? And that's a heavier burden than any failure. I can still play it back in slow motion, walking into Linda's glass-walled office. The resignation letter clutched in my sweaty palm, my heart doing a frantic drum solo against my ribs. The look on her face when I slid that crisp white envelope across her ridiculously tidy desk was a masterpiece of barely suppressed disdain. A small, cruel smirk played on her lips. "Sarah, darling," she cooed, her voice dripping with condescension. "You'll come crawling back. They all do. You'll be begging for this soul-crushing job within a month. Mark my words." The air in the open plan office, normally just stale with recycled air and unspoken frustrations, suddenly crackled with the electric buzz of hushed whispers and sidelong glances as the news rippled through the cubicle farm. They thought I'd finally cracked, flown completely off the corporate reservation. And if I'm being brutally honest, a tiny, terrified part of me wondered if they were right. But the bigger part, the part that had been silenced for too long, roared back with defiance. I forced a smile, one that I hoped looked more confident than I felt, lifted my chin a little higher, and walked out of Midwest Marketing Solutions for the last time. The sound of their disbelief a bizarrely motivating soundtrack to my escape. My legs felt like jelly. But my spirit? My spirit was soaring. Let me debunk a myth for you right now. Starting a business is nothing like those slick, inspiring montages you see on Instagram, set to an upbeat indie track. There's no instant glamour, no overnight flood of adoring clients, no magical, aha, moment where everything just clicks into place. My empire, Dream Vibe Events, wasn't launched in a chic co-working space with exposed brick and artisanal coffee. It was born in the chaotic, cramped corner of my studio apartment, surrounded by teetering towers of instant ramen and motivational quotes hastily scribbled on sticky notes. I was the CEO, the chief marketing officer, the head of sales, the intern fetching coffee for myself, and, yes, the janitor, often cleaning up the debris of my own exhaustion. My days became a relentless, humbling grind. I cold-called hundreds of businesses, my voice cracking with nerves, only to be met with a dial tone or a curt, dismissive secretary. I crafted thousands of personalized email pitches, pouring my heart and soul into each one, most of which vanished into the digital ether, unanswered. I networked relentlessly, attending every local business mixer, often feeling like an imposter in a room full of people who seemed to have it all figured out. The rejections piled up, each, a tiny chip at my resolve. There was one particularly brutal blow. I was this close to landing a game-changing contract with a trendy new chain of boutique hotels. It was the kind of deal that could put Dream Vibe events on the map. I'd practically lived and breathed their brand for weeks, customizing a proposal that was, if I may say so myself, sheer genius. Countless sleepless nights, endless revisions, a presentation I'd rehearsed until I could do it in my sleep. Then, radio silence, followed by a short, impersonal email. They decided to go with a larger, more established agency. The words swam before my eyes. Established, larger, everything I wasn't. That night, the carefully constructed dam of my composure finally broke. I sank to the floor of my tiny apartment, the silence amplifying the mocking stack of bills on my Formica kitchen counter. And I just shattered. The tears weren't pretty, they were ragged. Ugly sobs of pure frustration, fear, and a soul-deep loneliness. Am I completely delusional? I choked out to the empty room. The city lights a cold, indifferent audience outside my window. Were they all right? Did I trade a perfectly good life for a pipe dream and a mountain of debt? The echo of Linda's smug, "You'll be back," taunted me. But then, through the fog of despair, a stubborn ember glowed. The memory of why I'd started this madness. It wasn't just to prove them wrong, though that was a delicious side benefit. It was to prove to myself that the vision burning so brightly in my soul was real. That it was worth fighting for. Bleeding for. I dragged myself up, splashed cold water on my tear-streaked face, and stared at my reflection. This wasn't the end. This was boot camp. This was where I learned. I dissected every mistake, every rejection. I devoured books on negotiation, branding, guerrilla marketing. I brainstormed even wilder, more audacious event concepts. Things no established agency would dare to pitch. I became a ninja of resourcefulness, a master of the pivot, and more tenacious than a pit bull with a stake. After 6 relentless, soul-grinding months, just as my savings account was gasping its last breath and the whispers of Linda's smug prophecy were becoming a deafening roar in my head, a sliver of light pierced through the gloom. A dynamic, fast-rising tech startup, flush with venture capital and hungry to make an explosive debut, had stumbled upon my very basic, very homemade website. Something about my offbeat, slightly futuristic, sensory overload, launch party concept resonated with their disruptive brand. This was it, my Hail Mary, my one shot. I poured every last ounce of my dwindling energy, every creative spark I possessed, and the last dregs of my savings into this project. I became a whirlwind of activity. I scouted unconventional venues that made traditional planners blanch. I charmed, cajoled, and convinced a small, fiercely talented band of freelance creatives, lighting designers, sound engineers, performance artists, to believe in my crazy vision and work for promises and passion as much as pay. I practically lived on black coffee and a burning desire not to fail. There were 1,000 logistical nightmares, moments I was convinced the whole thing would implode. But the image of Linda's condescending smirk, the collective doubt of my former colleagues, it was like rocket fuel. The launch event wasn't just a success, it was a goddamn phenomenon. The tech startup's executives were over the moon. Guests were buzzing, their faces illuminated by the innovative light installations, their senses ignited by the interactive experiences. Photos and videos from the night exploded across social media, tagged with hashtag nextlevel, hashtag future of events, hashtag dream vibe killed it. It was bold, it was different, it was utterly unforgettable, and it perfectly encapsulated the client's cutting-edge identity. And just like that, the momentum shifted. My phone, which had gathered dust for so many lonely months, started to chirp. Then it started to ring. Then it wouldn't stop. Other companies, intrigued by the viral buzz, wanted Dream Vibe Events to sprinkle its unique brand of magic on their launches. Their galas, their corporate retreats, small, scrappy projects led to larger, more ambitious ones. I finally, blessedly, Moved Dream Vibe Events out of my cramped apartment and into a small but decidedly professional office space with actual windows. I hired my first few full-time employees, bright, hungry, creative souls who didn't just want a job. They wanted to build something amazing. The numbers in my business account started to climb. And for the first time in what felt like a geological age, I could take a full breath without the crushing weight of impending financial Armageddon. The true, holy cow, I actually did it, moment. The one that still gives me chills. Arrived about a year into this exhilarating, terrifying roller coaster. An email, sleek and corporate, landed in my inbox, not from another plucky startup, but from a global, Fortune 500 behemoth. They were putting out feelers for an agency to conceptualize and execute their massive, multi-million-dollar annual leadership summit. My jaw literally dropped. This wasn't just the big leagues, this was the World Series. After a grueling gauntlet of presentations, navigating complex RFPs, and pitching my heart out against some of the very same, established giants I'd been warned I could never dream of competing with, Dream Vibe Events landed the contract. The day I put my signature on that contract, my hand was shaking, but it wasn't from nerves or fear. It was from the almost overwhelming, electric shock of realizing just how far I'd climbed. From the overlooked, underestimated dreamer whose ambitions were casually dismissed with a patronizing laugh, I had become Sarah Thompson, founder and CEO of a thriving, sought-after company, signing deals that had once existed only in my wildest, most audacious fantasies. Fast forward another year, a year filled with incredible growth, challenging projects, and the quiet satisfaction of building something truly meaningful. I found myself standing backstage, heart pounding, waiting to be introduced as a keynote speaker at Innovate Fest, one of the premier event industry conferences in the country. As I walked onto the brightly lit stage, adjusting the microphone, my gaze swept across the sea of faces in the auditorium. And there, sitting in the third row, looking distinctly uncomfortable under the stage lights, was Linda. Her usually perfectly composed face was pale, her trademark smugness replaced by an expression of something I could only interpret as pure, unadulterated shock. The condescending smirk that had haunted my early days? Utterly, gloriously absent. After my speech, which, to my humble surprise, received a standing ovation, Linda made a beeline for me, her demeanor now radiating an almost painful level of forced friendliness. "Sarah, my dear, that was quite the presentation. You've certainly done exceptionally well for yourself," she gushed, her voice a little too high-pitched, her eyes darting around, unable to quite hide the green-tinged flicker of something that looked suspiciously like envy. It was a far, far cry from the woman who had so confidently predicted my imminent, humiliating failure in return. In the weeks and months that followed, other ghosts from my corporate past began to materialize. Former colleagues, the ones who had been part of the whispering gallery of doubt, suddenly reappeared in my LinkedIn messages and email inbox. Some were subtly, or not so subtly, angling for job opportunities. Others just wanted to catch up and reconnect. Now that Sarah Thompson was a name associated with success rather than quixotic dreams, it was illuminating. But the truth was, I didn't need their belated validation. I had forged my own path, built my own tribe, surrounded myself with people who had believed in me when I was nothing more than a crazy idea and a prayer. They laughed when I dared to take that terrifying leap of faith. They whispered behind cupped hands and placed their bets on my inevitable downfall. But now, my success wasn't just speaking for itself, it was a roaring anthem, drowning out their negativity, forcing them into an awkward, undeniable silence. Dream Vibe Events was no longer a fantastical notion cooked up in a shoebox apartment, it was an award-winning, industry-respected powerhouse. I wasn't just living my dream, I was living the very dream they had so arrogantly, so dismissively declared impossible. My journey from a cubicle drone to a company founder wasn't a breezy walk in the park. And I won't insult your intelligence by pretending it was. It was paved with an ocean of sweat. More tears than I'm proud to admit. And an ungodly number of sleepless nights fueled by stale coffee and gnawing anxiety. There were countless moments I wanted to throw in the towel. To scream, "Uncle." To crawl back to the suffocating safety and predictability of my old life. But here's the raw, unfiltered truth I want to leave you with. If I Sarah Thompson, an ordinary woman from the suburbs of Chicago, armed with little more than a head full of audacious dreams and a terrifyingly small bank account, could claw my way to this point, then I believe with every fiber of my being that you can too. Is there a dream burning a hole in your soul? A vision you've kept locked away, terrified of what the chorus of doubters might say? Is there an idea so bold, so electrifying, that it makes your heart race, even as the people around you are dousing your sparks with their lukewarm water of cynicism and ridicule? Please, I implore you, don't let them win. Don't let their laughter be the soundtrack to your unlived life. Don't let their skepticism become the tombstone of your aspirations. Don't let their outright scorn dictate the extraordinary path you were meant to walk. Find that flicker of courage, that defiant spark within you. Take that first, wobbly, terrifying step, and then another, and another. Start building the damn life you can't stop dreaming about. Turn their doubt into your rocket fuel. Let their mockery become the anthem of your motivation. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for listening to my story, for sharing this space with me. If any part of this resonated, if it stirred something within you, please, show some love by hitting that like button. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that their dreams are valid and worth fighting for. And consider subscribing to the Revenge Ruby channel for more unfiltered stories of turning epic adversity into even more epic triumph. And now, I really want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's that colossal, audacious dream that keeps you up at night? And who are the naysayers, the doubters, the mockers in your life that you are absolutely determined to leave in your rearview mirror? Choking on the dust of your success? I'm here, I'm reading, and I'm cheering you on. Every single step of your incredible journey.